This episode is powered by Act Now Education. Go to www.actnoweducation.com for free comprehensive educational resources and opportunities for active duty, veterans, military spouses, and children.
Let's address the elephant in the room here, right? Not everybody that works at McDonald's flips burgers. Not everybody that joined the Air Force flies a plane, and not everybody that works at Uber drives a vehicle. Okay, so when we speak about Uber today, we're talking a lot about our corporate roles, right? Our earners, our drivers that are out there, those folks are the heartbeat of our business. They are the backbone. They're what's got us where we are today. We love them. We value them. Right? But those folks are independent contractors. I'm speaking about hiring folks into corporate opportunities and corporate roles, right? So really getting to leverage those fundamentals, right? Skill sets, education, right? And soft skills that they've gotten while serving or post-military, or if they were married to someone.
Warriors fall in. It's time for formation. So today I'm joined with an Army veteran who now serves as the head of veteran and military programs for the well-known, innovative company that you know and I know called Uber. In today's episode, you might be surprised and you might see Uber in a different light that'll make you understand that there are really a ton of opportunities for career growth after the uniform. Today I'm joined with Michael Pett, who's going to discuss his own transition out of the military and how Uber plans to connect with the military community and the career seekers out there after the uniform. Michael, thank you for joining us today on the Morning Formation podcast.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, man, the honor's all mine. I had seen so much online articles and different postings about Uber and how they're looking to bridge that gap between the military community and their company. And so I had to reach out to you to get you on the podcast because I understand that many times there's more than meets the eye when it comes to opportunities. And so I really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to come out and join us and talk to us about Uber and how they plan on connecting with the military community. But before we get into all that, Michael, would you mind sharing your own military career transition experiences as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my transition journey is going to sound fairly similar to a lot of people that are probably tuning in, right? I left active duty after 15 years. I had an idea as to what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in the corporate space, somewhere within recruiting, because that's kind of how and why my active duty career kind of ended, the way it did. I was kind of burnt out on it, but I knew out of all the things that I had done in the military, that was something that was a good skill set that I could bring to the table in corporate America. So much like everybody else, the transitions, I kind of did my research, looked at companies, big name companies, because, I went with what I kind of knew about, kind of looked a little bit deeper, in regards to, is there an employee resource group out there? Are there going to be other veterans out there that I can connect with? Something to where we can bridge that gap. Ultimately, I met a dear friend of mine who worked for a company called Accenture, which is a really large global consulting firm. And they had a strong reputation. And he said, hey, you might want to check this place out. So he referred me. And really a few weeks later, I was employed there. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky though. Okay. I'm Mr. Uniform every day. I don't know what it means to become a contractor. Okay. And for those of you all listening in, a contractor is different than a full-time employee. You might both be putting in 40 hours a week, but that contractor doesn't necessarily have paid time off. Right? No vacation time. They may not have any insurance benefits. They may not have a 401k. They may not have a lot of things. So I took a leap of faith. I really did. I said, you know what? I'm going to try this contractor route out and I'm going to see how it plays. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I got converted to a full-time employee. I wound up taking over the team a year and a half later, and we did amazing things. Now that sounds like success story, right? Sounds like nothing
Right.
bad happened along the way.
Right.
Let me tell you, 8 days into my role at Accenture, I was calling up active duty recruiters again. I was scared to death. I felt like I had made the biggest mistake. There was a language barrier. I wasn't knife handing anybody, per se, as a senior non-commissioned officer, but I was out of my element and I was
Mm.
scared to death. So what I began to do, and I'm sorry, y'all, this is a long-winded response to this question, but I started taking down notes because I knew that if my goofy self was having a bad transition, wasn't assimilating, wasn't integrating properly, I knew that our brothers and sisters after me were also going to go through that. So I started taking the notes down, figuring out ways to kind of crack in, learn more, do more, be better. And I turned those into really books that we would give our future veteran and military partner employees. And that's what I do here at Uber too, to really ease in that pain of transition. So basically, to answer your question, I went through the transition like everybody else did. I didn't have a whole lot of assistance. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to, like one of those amazing Ivy League schools out there. I went to a school. I felt like I checked the blocks, but sometimes, as veterans, when we exit the military, we feel like life stopped while we were wearing the uniform.
Right.
I'm here to tell you all, it did not stop, and I had to sprint to get caught back up.
Yeah. Now, while you were in uniform, Michael, did you set yourself up for success? Did you knock out any college or any certifications or anything like that to help with your overall transition?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I was kind of a loner. Not really a loner. That's kind of a bad label. But I really did kind of know that my military career eventually was going to have an end. So I
Mm.
knew that I was going to take advantage of all of the educational benefits the military offered. No, no kidding. Like I straight up had a plan. Like I knew I was going to go and finish undergrad and do all that. So I was one of the lucky ones. I went to a Big Ten school, went to U of I, wrapped up, undergrad. Cool. Stayed enlisted. Went up through the ranks. I know you're a Mustang, but I stayed the enlisted, route because I love training people. I love being around Joe, and I loved having that ability to kind of shape and the future leaders of the United States Army.
Yeah. And I think when you mentioned loner, to me, what that means to me was you kind of decided to do things on your own without a whole lot of help. At least that's how it was for me, man. Like when I got out, I did not seek the help of TAPS. I did not seek the help of anyone else. I just did it myself, which is the one I think big mistake that I made. And I probably should have sought the help of folks out there that kind of had already been there, done that before. Did you experience the same as well?
Absolutely. I think when all of us were ACAPing, for, and processing out, we were looking at that time like, hey, I got to get my stuff straight. I want my household goods to make sure that they get home, and make sure that like my family has a bed for me, or something along those lines. Plus this, we talked about it already, right? I'm a Schofield guy, right? So when I was leaving, to go halfway back around the world to back to Chicago, I needed to make sure certain things were going to be there. And guess what? They weren't. My family wasn't even in Illinois anymore. They had moved to Georgia. I was coming back, so like there's all these things that I had to kind of wrap my head around. The last thing I was concentrating on was ACAPing, right? Checking those little blocks. That wasn't
Yeah.
that wasn't my style. I knew I was going to school. Everything else could wait. That was something that I truly do regret, not taking advantage of those on base resources.
Yeah, same goes for me. And I think it's the same for a lot of people too. Cause even now today, when I speak to people that are still in uniform and I try to talk to them about networking, they're like, I don't need that, and they kind of blow it off and I'm like, you're gonna regret it. So
Sure.
it's you try to reach the folks that you can and you just try to talk to the folks that don't want to listen and hopefully someday they'll actually get it. But you mentioned you're a recruiter for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I've spoken to other recruiters before, and the feedback that I've gotten out of that specific position was that job skill having the soft skills, I should say, of being a recruiter actually translated over to the civilian side. Would you also agree with that?
Oh, 100%. So a lot of, well, I mean, all the Army recruiters, I can't speak to everybody else, but I would assume that all branches go to a similar style of training, right? But with that, you get sales experience, comprehensive communication skills, right?
Right.
All these amazing tools, that you think when you're serving, you're never going to use these things again, right?
Right.
But as you look, through that other lens, right, as you look towards the exit, you know that that's a lot of stuff you can bring to the table with you. And that's going to shine really, really well when you go through the interview process. And the cool thing about it was, I hitched my wagon to the right company or companies, right? People saw that value that came from what I learned in the Army.
Right. Yeah, and that's my point exactly is a lot of times people don't see the translation. And when I had heard actually it was a sergeant major that mentioned that to me, that his time in recruiting really helped him as far as being a civilian in real estate. I was really surprised. And he said, yeah, the soft skills that I learned in recruiting really helped me out. And so sometimes it's kind of hard for people to draw those lines between the skills that we utilize and we actually put to use on a regular basis in the military and how they can be utilized on the civilian side. So I thought that was quite fascinating. And just to pivot, and by the way, just to comment real quick, I think it's absolutely fabulous that Uber has positioned somebody like you as a representative to be that bridge between the military and the civilian career field. I've seen too many times other organizations will put somebody in there that has never served before and they won't quite understand the culture and they don't quite seem to get it. And so it's refreshing to see you, Michael, in that position and Uber actually taking into account the opportunity to put someone like yourself there who really understands like what's going on and what people are looking for when they get out of the military. Um,
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's that. I mean, it is right.
yeah,
I think it's, I'm not going to speak it. I mean, I'll try and speak in a generality here, but there are a lot of companies out there that try and go with that optics play. Stuff
right,
somebody in there. You know, make it. I call it the military ready versus military friendly exercise, where military friendly. Yeah, it's a cool little badge you can put on your website, but are you ready? Do you
right,
know what our community, endures on a day-to-day basis? Do you know what a mobilization's like? Do you know what a PCS is like? Do you know what, all those things are? I do because I went through them myself, right? So I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful that they have the vision to see how the value that we as an armed forces community can bring. And like I said, I'm so thankful that I hitched my wagon to this company, who itself has gone through its own growing. Right? We've got TV shows after us. Our history is widely researchable. Right? So we know that we're putting our the right steps and right feet forward to get to get more folks from our community right here.
yeah, definitely. And I think you being in that position is certainly a step in the right direction for sure. And just to pivot to talk about Uber specifically, would you mind talking to us about the Uber military veteran partner, the MVP? What's the mission of that, and what's the
Yeah.
main purpose?
So our main mission is to hire, act, and create, right? We want to hire external talent that's transitioning from the armed forces community in every country that Uber has a footprint, right? That is one of our NATO allies, right? We're going to hire those folks, and I'm not talking. And let's address the elephant in the room here, right? Not everybody that works at McDonald's flips burgers. Not everybody that joined the Air Force flies a plane, and not everybody that works at Uber drives a vehicle. Okay, so
Right,
when we speak about Uber today, we're talking a lot about our corporate roles, right? Our earners, our drivers that are out there, those folks are the heartbeat of our business. They are the backbone. They're what's got us where we are today. We love them, we value them, right? But those folks are independent contractors. I'm speaking about hiring folks into corporate opportunities and corporate roles, right? So really getting to leverage those fundamentals, right? Skill sets, education, right? And soft skills that they've gotten while serving or post-military, or if they were married to somebody. We act as internal consultants, right? So I educate the business on a daily basis in regards to what a profile looks like. Back in the day, it used to be go to war or go to jail, right? That was the recruitment strategy of the
Right.
military back in the day.
Right.
Now we've got more folks going back to school and earning a degree in a STEM field than our civilian counterparts. The post 9/11 generation is the most educated generation in history of the armed forces. Think about that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we go after this amazing community, right? So we have to continuously educate them, right? And share share our diversity metrics, share all of those big sexy terms that they love to hear, share how we can help them achieve those goals, right? And then
Right.
the last thing, hire, act, create. All right. We have to create a red carpet experience. First thing I did was took a look, listen, feel approach, right? Check out the current state of Uber and figure out where we want to go. We didn't have any onboarding. We didn't have any integration programs that were going to help our community, right? So I took that book that I kind of talked about earlier, right? Where it's got all these amazing resources, coupled that with mentorship, ambassadorship programs, and now we're creating that red carpet experience. Is it perfect? No, no, it's not. It's not. I got a long way to go, but we have the right folks here. We've got the right leaders here, and we're working together each and every day to try and get something that our community can be really, really proud of.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, Michael, is you had mentioned to me before I talked about September 11th and how we're 20 years out from that. And that was really the kickoff of the Afghanistan war. And then shortly thereafter, we had the Iraq war. And you had mentioned before, and it's something I hadn't even thought about myself, was how we're 20 years out, which is at that point where we get a lot of folks retiring out of the military. And these are folks who have spent their entire lives, going to Iraq, going to Afghanistan, getting the education. And so they're going to be looking to transition out. And what I really enjoyed about your point that you made about that was how Uber was positioning themselves to kind of be that bridge to kind of bridge that gap of meeting those folks when they come out and getting that talent and adding it to their own workforce. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, that was quite fascinating. I hadn't even really thought about that before. You're
Yeah.
right. I know a lot of people that are just retiring out of the military here in the next couple of years.
It's wild to think, right? We're going to go through a real mass exodus across all branches, right across all
Right.
militaries, to where folks are going to be looking for that next opportunity. And I'm going to tell you something that I really haven't ever shared before, but I want to say how proud I am of tech companies in general, right? During COVID, during, workforce reductions across all tech companies, those of us that sit in kind of a leadership position within the veteran space, if we were, you know, going through that workforce reduction, right? We know each other, right? We don't harbor talent, we share talent. And we all work together to say, hey, we've got so many veterans, so many partners have unfortunately they lost their role, due to what was going on in the economy or the climate, right? And we found ways to like, hey, share talent, check out these profiles. Can you do anything for these people, right? Those are the ways that we kind of work together behind the scenes. So that way, as this mass exodus happens, we can still create opportunity, right? We're sharing talent across, regardless, if it's Uber, if it's Amazon, if it's Meta, we're trying to come up with ways to continue to help our brothers and sisters out.
Yeah, that's what I love so much about when I was reading about Uber, man, and specifically so, and I know we've mentioned so many things during this podcast so far, but Michael, from your own experiences and from your own experiences as, the head of military and veteran programs with Uber, why is Uber an ideal place for veterans, military spouses, or service members transitioning out of the military?
Well, if you think about like some of the soft skills that we have, right? Whether you're a commissioned officer, an NCO, or even a junior enlisted, right? We are
Mhm.
leaders, right? We are always thinking about, next person up, right? And what do we have to do? We're always mission focused, right? We're extremely resilient people. We have the ability to overcome adversity. Look at
Right.
Uber, right? Uber is constantly coming up with ways to crack the code and get into different industries, right? And we need people that aren't going to take really, no for an answer, right? And I mean that in a professional setting, but take no for an answer, right? They're going to find ways to make things happen. And what was the one thing we always said in the Army, right? Make it happen, right? So
Right.
we have a really wonderful profile that aligns with a lot of the great roles. Is it a one-to-one? Heck no, right? And nothing's a one-to-one comparison, but there are a lot of positions that we've got, whether they be in operations or project management, right? To where you can take a lot of what you've done in the military and bring it right to the table. You might need a little upskilling. You might need to get a couple of other things under your belt to make sure you're the perfect fit. But that's the way it is with whether it be Uber or anywhere else, right? But Uber recognizes that value. But let's not forget about our military spouses, or as we call them, military partners, right? They've been holding it down. I know the NCOs are the backbone of the Army, right? No, I'm going to change that over. The military partners are the backbone of the military, right? Whether they continue to work or they're holding it down at the house and taking care of everybody, right?
Right.
Or they're going through those PSCSs, right? Or rolling from role to role, country to country, state to state. My gosh, they're afforded the same opportunity as any veteran, any current service person, right? We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to be successful too, because they go through that transition journey right alongside their partner.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I used to host a room in Clubhouse where I had the likes of military spouses, service members, veterans, all under one roof. So I would hear everyone from the military community and some of the issues that they were having, and then also hear some of the resources that were reaching out to help out those folks, because it really is one family when it comes to not just a military veteran, but also it's everything that they go through, from deployments to TDYs to moves and all that stuff. It's felt throughout the entire family itself. And I love what you said about make it happen, because I have done some research on Uber's history, and they have overcome a lot to be where they're at right
Yeah,
now.
man. I know.
And
You burn me with those questions. Is that what you're going to do?
no, it's actually I find it quite fitting for military members to be fitted with a company that has overcome a lot of obstacles, because as veterans we also do too, right? And so you're talking about all these different things, expansive like career opportunities within Uber. Could you explain how Uber is actually a tech company versus just a rideshare business? And
Yeah.
what are some of the lesser known opportunities for our listeners out there?
Yeah. No. I'm so glad you brought that up, right? So, Uber as a service, right, is rideshare. It is, having your, food and goods and services delivered, right? So for the end user, right, that's how they look at us, right? They go to their app, they order what they want to either have brought to them, have them picked up, have it delivered. There's so many different options that's out on our platform. But if you flip that, right, which is kind of like why I brought up not everybody at McDonald's flips burgers, right? We are a tech company because it's our software that people are using, right? Just like TikTok, just like, and not to use them because I'm a frequent user of their stuff, but, Twitter, Meta, those are all tech companies, and we fall within that window as well because we are providing services through a tech-based, app,
Right.
right, to provide it there. Our folks are some of the sharpest people I've ever had the privilege of meeting. I mean, each and every day, I am just blown away at the level of intelligence in some of our offices, right? Whether they're, fresh out of, high school in some instances, fresh out of college, right? What have you. These are some sharp folks. So it's really, really cool to be around them. It's almost infectious, to hear some of them kind of have their chats. Now, as veterans think about technology, sometimes they get a little skittish. They're like, whoa, it's not my lane.
Right.
I'm a software engineer. I don't know anything about that. Well, let me tell you, there are so many amazing resources for free to the armed forces community to get them tech savvy. I know a lot of people are participating in skill bridge apprenticeships, right? To get them up to speed. We have academy programs. Okay. And I'm getting actually to kick one off in a couple of weeks. It's called Boost. Okay. But we are going to bring in 15 folks and we are going to teach them 8 months worth of software engineering. They're going to be hired, they're going to be paid, they're going to be brought on, they're full-time employees, and they will work for us after they're done with their training academy. But I mean, think about that. That's right. Designed to upskill them. Is a college degree required? Nope. Imagine that. Could you imagine being a software engineer at an amazing company like Uber without a college degree? Now, some of them might have them, right? Because they got it. But we are going to take folks that are leveraging, a boot camp or an accelerator program and bringing them on. So as veterans and military partners, exit out of the military and they begin thinking, gosh, what's next? Oh, there's no way I'm ever going to get into technology. There's no way I can do this. There's no way I can get into that. I wouldn't be so quick to say that because there are so many exciting programs, right? We have a sales academy, the talent acquisition academy, software engineering academies, data science academies. So all these amazing ways to kind of jump right in, work for an amazing tech company and start really, earning a great, amount of money, a great benefits package to set you and your family up for the foreseeable future.
Wow. That gets me excited, to be honest with you, man. Just listening to your voice and listening to all the opportunities that are out there. You mentioned all these different academies and these programs. Can you talk in further detail about the talent development and the career progression within Uber?
Absolutely. So, in the military, if I'm a civilian, I can Google, our pay charts, right? I can find out, 2 years, 4 years. I can look up, AR 600-8-19, right? And look up the promotions, right? I can find all of that material out. On the corporate side, right, it's a little bit more challenging to figure out what it's going to take for you to get to that next rung, right? So when we bring folks on, they're instantly given a mentor, all right? That person is going to help them better understand kind of how to navigate that lane, that new lane they find themselves in, which is pretty exciting, right? Because starting a new thing, it doesn't matter if you spent 5 years in the military or 20 years in the military. When you're take the uniform off and you start that next role, it's going to be somewhat intimidating. So having a mentor, that's awesome. Additionally, we have employee resource groups. So we really try and nudge our new joiners to join them, right? For me, I need family. I need community. I need that sense of belonging. I need my brothers and sisters who've, shared similar interests, right? So I immediately latched on to our Veterans at Employee Resource Group, so that way we could continue to have, the water cooler conversations, right? We talk about deployments. We talk about all that stuff, right? And that helps ease in that transition process. Now, additionally, we have clear guidelines on the competencies that you need to hit in order to get promoted. Sounds very similar to what you did in the military, right? You knew what school you needed to go to. You knew what your PT scores and all that other stuff needed to be, right, in order for you to qualify for promotion. Corporate side's exact same, right? As long as you're doing your role, hitting your numbers, doing what you've got to do, following the course, you're going to be good. And there's going to be people there that want to see you succeed that'll help you along the way. Sounds a lot like when you got to your first duty station and you had a sponsor, right?
Yes.
Took you to S1, S4, showed you where the chow hall was, right? All that stuff. We try and do that. Obviously COVID has impacted on how much of a high touch process it can be, but we really do try our hardest to get that. And now with us getting back to the office, we do have a way better way of doing it. It's a lot cooler for the folks joining.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really appreciate how you know, you go to a new duty station, somebody catches you, picks you up from the airport usually, and then takes you to in processing and takes you all these different places because it's a very unknown, strange territory for you to be in a new place in a strange land. And so the fact that Uber recognizes that in itself is very impressive because I can tell you that from my own personal experiences, I've been with employers before that have just kind of been like, here's your information. Just walk down this hallway and figure it out. So it's good to see that they actually have someone to kind of meet you in the middle and kind of show you the ropes and get you acclimated to the lay of the
Yeah.
land. Yeah,
Well, to that
definitely.
point, right? You
Right.
mentioned transition journey, right? That a
Right.
lot of why we have it set up the way we do now is because of my previous experience too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was really, really rough, right? There was a lot of, just imposter syndrome, right? So having that, sense of community set up early helped so much with our new joiners.
Yeah, and you've mentioned so many things that you have stood up, created just since you've been in your position. And this entire time, I didn't ask you about your specific position. So, would you mind just talking to the listeners out there about what it is that you specifically do uh, for Uber and the
Sure.
military community?
Yeah, so my role as the head of military and veteran programs for Uber really is to work with our business units, right? And one, educate them, right? So it kind of goes back to that consultant component, right? So we want to work with the business to show them the significance and importance of why we should really employ diverse talent, right? Military veteran partner community is an underrepresented community, right? We know that roughly, less than 1% of the population serves. Okay. But with that, if we unpack that from a numerical perspective, if we're looking at diversity and inclusion, over 40% of our community is racially and ethnically diverse, right? Latinx, African American, right? Black and brown. Um, then when we look at our gender, right, our numbers in the gender, it's still very male heavy, but there's a ton of folks on active duty that are married, okay, which allows us to really open that up to the partner community too, right? The reason why I bring that as that even that stuff up is because that is attractive to business leaders, right? They want to make sure that they have diverse populations working within their business because we know that if there's diversity of thought, right, there's going to be stronger outcomes, right? There's going to be stronger team cohesion, right? You're going to have multiple solutions to solve a problem, right? That just makes for better business. So that's one of the things that I have to continuously do. Additionally, I've got to come up with cool and creative ways to find and attract our talent.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be coming on here, right?
Right.
Or working with other awesome external partners that we have, right? Whether it be the Pat Tillman Foundation, Vets in Tech, Student Veterans of America, the list goes on and on and on and on. I try and really hold on to those partnerships as really as long as I can and do right by them. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be bringing their community into mine, and I want to make sure that it's just a positive, relationship. The other thing I have to do is I have to educate our talent acquisition force, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which can be kind of funny sometimes because of how passionate I am. I get it. Some folks say it's infectious, right, or contagious. How passionate I am about the community. Well, it's easy to be when you come from the community, right?
Right.
So going back to what you said about having somebody who hails from the community, there's a reason why my teams have been successful is because I bring people from our community to hire people from our community because we hail from it. It's kind of a win-win. So whether it be from the strategic focus, right, the hiring focus or the educating focus, those are a lot of kind of what lanes I swim in my day to day.
Just to make a comment, man, I think you're doing an outstanding job. You certainly got my attention, and I reached out to you, man, and wanted to get an interview with you because I had seen so much buzz on social media, and I saw an article about Uber and their overall, attempt to try to bridge that gap between the military community and the civilian career fields out there. Overall, man, it sounds like you've done a lot of projects to try to set up within Uber to make that landing a lot softer for our military community. And so I appreciate that. And I can hear the passion in your voice, man, and how much you love what you do for a living. Now, ever since the pandemic, this has been something that's kind of been a sort of a big deal for folks out there. And I wanted to ask you, like, as far as like work locations, and with Uber being a tech company and it being fairly remote, is Uber fairly flexible with the remote working, or are there specific cities with corporate locations? How does that work with such a company like Uber?
Yeah, so wildly receptive to remote opportunities, right? Or hybrid roles. What we're doing now is we've adopted the hybrid approach, right? Which is like a 3-2 or a 2-3, right? 3 days in the office, 2 days from home, or vice versa, right? Some folks have full remote, right? They've been given those privileges, they've put in a specific request, they've been granted. And for those of you that are listening and like, oh gosh, what do I do during, the application process? How do I let people know? Once you make contact with that first, person from our talent acquisition force, let them know right away. Don't omit it. Don't keep it as a back pocket item, right? During negotiations, right? Like, oh, I want to work remote, right? Just get it out there. We're super transparent. So today I'm actually working from the house. Tomorrow, I will absolutely be in the office, right? So at the end of the day, we know that teams work together by literally working together, right? The reports and the data is out there, but we also understand that not everybody is there yet. Not everybody is comfortable with going to that. So as people begin to do it, we're going to see an uptick in people coming back to the office. One thing I do have to admit, a little shameless plug here, though, we've got some amazing food in our office, and our offices are really, really freaking awesome. So you can go onto our website and see them. The Chicago office that I get to go to all the time, the food, the people, the vibe. I mean, it really kind of took me out of that post-COVID funk, that I was feeling, right? Where, socially isolated, so it really kind of got some more bounce back in my step, which I was super grateful for.
I know what you're saying, man. It's the same thing with me. I didn't realize that how, I guess, sort of depressed I was just being home all the time until I went back to the office and was interacting with people and got the sights and the sounds and the smells of, being back in an office. But it's great to hear that Uber has those opportunities to work remote as well. And throughout this podcast, we've talked about your position specifically within Uber. We've talked about all the great opportunities within Uber as well, and how it's not just a rideshare app, but it's truly a tech app, and it's a tech company. And so with that being said, if anyone out there listening from our military community would like to take the first step with researching or connecting with you or someone from the MVP program, how can they do that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways, right? So we've got our own LinkedIn group, right? They can join. We get out there. There's a lot of, folks that'll try and, kind of post random stuff. We try and keep it bipartisan. We try and keep it, all armed forces friendly, right? The only real post outside of roles, right? Posting specific positions that we might be hiring for, we might have, some call outs, right? Some wins we might celebrate on that LinkedIn, or, if there's a veteran or somebody's in crisis, we allow that stuff. But get onto our LinkedIn group, follow us. We're going to post amazing opportunities. Another great way to connect with me, right? I promise you, right? If you ask me a question, all right, if you ask me a question in a LinkedIn email, I guarantee you I'm going to reply to you. Okay. Now, if you just send me a random statement, okay, I get hate mail every day. I get random notes, right? I get people just making blanketed statements, and that's cool. I want to help you, but if you don't give me a question, I don't know what to say to you, right? So you can connect in straight up with me, and then uber.com /careers /MVP. Okay, that's a great way. You can land on our landing page, and you can learn a little bit more about the program that I've built with my amazing team, right, and the amazing folks that I work with every day.
Awesome, man. And my final question is going to be, whether you have any advice for our military community. Before I get to that, I want to
Mm.
ask you, what is beyond the horizon for Uber and the military programs? Can you talk about anything that's upcoming, any conferences, any events, or
Yeah.
yeah, we're excited to hear that.
Yeah, totally. So we're definitely going to be at the NBA Veterans Conference in Atlanta, Georgia in October. I know this is like, wow, I don't have an MBA. Well, I get it, right? But don't worry, there's other conferences that are going to be coming up. There's Student Veterans of America's National Conference, which I've attended either virtually or in person for the last 8 years. I'm like, I'm like one of the most seasoned people within this space that still goes to those. They're so much fun. We're also gonna, we'll be at Afrotech. We're gonna be at Out and Equal. We're gonna be at like every diversity conference that we can try and get into, right? That are coming available. But we're also, for those folks, there's a spotlight in security at Fort Meade coming up. Okay, so for those people that are within the military, on the Eastern Seaboard, don't worry, we're going to come and check you out too. Okay. So we're going to have a lot of things. So please, I encourage you, follow our LinkedIn group, hit me up on LinkedIn. I always try to be as early as possible with the announcements. So that way you guys can plan accordingly. So those are some cool things that we've got coming up.
Michael, you're definitely a hustler, man, and I can tell you're very compassionate about what it is that you do. You create a lot of buzz, to the point, man, where I had to reach out to you and get you on the show, man, because Uber is a very fascinating company. From my own research, I think that there's a lot more to it than people realize, and so it's great to have you on the show to talk about some of those opportunities out there. And for those of you who are listening, please take it into consideration, because Uber actually cares about the military community enough to put someone like Michael in position to help bridge that gap for us. And, Michael, just to final out the show today, do you have any final piece of advice for folks out there looking to do a career transition within our community? Or do you have any general pieces of advice for folks out there, any for our listeners specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up something earlier. I want to make sure that we hammer this one home, right? Is networking.
Right.
Listen, I get it. Sometimes it sounds weird to reach out, right, to somebody or to cold call them, right? But let's figure this out, right? Before you exit active duty or exit the military or make that final transition homeward, right? You need a LinkedIn account. It's absolutely mandatory, right? That's kind of the way the business operates now. That is your digital resume. Okay. It's not a link, or it's not a Facebook. It's not a Twitter. It's not your Hinge or some sort of dating app. Okay. LinkedIn is a professional profile that you've got to keep up to date, right? So that's one thing. You got to have that. Power of networking is key. Okay. Get on companies' websites that you're interested in and do your homework. Okay. Please do not come up to people at career fairs or hiring events and say, I was a 92 Alpha, or I was a 13 Bravo or 11 Bravo. What opportunities do you have for me? We're not going to hire somebody who's, one, disinterested, hasn't done their homework, and hasn't found a creative way to translate their skill set. Now, if you are struggling with translating your skill set, don't worry about it. We're here. That's what my team also does. We're going to help you rewrite your resume. Okay. We're going to make sure that you feel confident. Okay. When you're applying for the roles. All right. We're going to go above and beyond. But guess what? I'm not the only one out there that does that. There's so many amazing people that really do give a damn, okay, about what happens to our community. It's you are going to require a team to transition. You cannot do it by yourself. So please, if like, I don't care if you went to Ranger, right? I don't care if you were SF. I don't care. Okay. Just that's awesome. And thank you for that. Right. You're rad. And like, truly, like, I'm super grateful for it. But at the end of the day, just because you did that doesn't mean you can successfully transition on your own. All right. Remember, we get across the finish line as a team. That exists both in the military and in the civilian side. They don't necessarily have to be internal people helping you, but you do need to leverage your community. So we're here to help, we're here to educate. So please, I hopefully I just gave you all some questions to ask me, okay? For when you do reach out.
I think that's great advice, man. Very, very great advice. Networking is absolutely essential. And I can tell you, as a veteran myself who struggled, I was part of that 80% that quit my first job within the first year. And I probably could have avoided that if I had just accepted the help before I took off the uniform and put on the civvies. And with that being said, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could be laundry and bath in the Army if they still have that MOS. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not your identity, and doesn't define who you are. I can tell you that from my own personal experience, I have an MBA in project management, but my undergrad is in criminal justice. And I recently got a certification in project management. So I'm all over the place. And at the end of the day, it makes me more of a dynamic person. So if you're listening out there, take advantage of those opportunities for you to get those certifications that interest you. And make sure you follow Uber on LinkedIn, Uber MVP, right?
So it's I'll send you all the information, but we have a Uber's military veteran and partner recruiting LinkedIn group, right?
Got it.
Basically, if you hit me up, don't worry, I'll send you the link and I'll take care of you all.
Yeah, and I'll definitely put all that down in the show notes as well. So make sure you're following all these. I'm a little bit jealous because in 2007, when I got out of the Army, the hottest thing out there was MySpace. I say it numerous times. Now we have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all these different opportunities for folks to connect. So I'm a little bit jealous of the folks out there that are making the transition now, but you're at the right place here on the Morning Formation to link up with folks like Mr. Pett here, who provided so much information about Uber today and the opportunities that are being provided for your future career. So Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
And for folks out there, as always, I want you to stay tuned, stay focused, and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out. You've been listening to the Morning Formation Podcast. I hope you found today's materials helpful and of value to your current situation. You can connect with me on Instagram at the_morning_formation_podcast, or you can connect with me via email at theformationpodcaster@gmail.com. Also, I would like to thank my partners at Act Now Education for their support. Authenticity, community, and trusted is what you can expect from all members of the Act Now Education team. You can link up with them today and learn about some new, free educational resources on their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or at their website, actnoweducation.com. Whether today's show took you back to a nostalgic time or helped you think about tomorrow, thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again. Stay safe and stay motivated. Warriors, fall out.